Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Women's Fitness Academy podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ellen. I am a female empowerment coach and I specialize in binge eating, building you a freaking strong, confident, and overcoming those negative body image thoughts. Today, I'm here with someone who I met in Bali. I feel like basically all of my guests lately I met in Bali, which I fucking love. There's just so many amazing people here. This is a girl who, I feel like she touched every single person that she met, in the best way possible. She's just such a ball of energy. She is just everyone in the gym was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing, please don't leave. And she's just when I first started talking to her and realized what she did for work, I was just so surprised. And I don't really know why, but I guess I just didn't realize that someone who was so fun and happy and bubbly had such a big role. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to let her introduce herself more properly. Her name is Hayley. She lives in Sydney, and she is the founder of a marketing company called Gambit Collective. So Hayley, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. What a great introduction. It makes me so sad. I'm like, I want to be back there.
Yeah, well, you will be back here soon. You will actually come back.
November, mark your calendars.
Yeah, and so like I said, in the intro, I remember when you told me what you do and how big your company is and how many people you're helping, and I was just wow, because I don't know, I guess we just have this idea in the back of my head, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, that someone who is the founder of a company, who has employees, they shouldn't be a young girl who just fun and happy and bubbly and always want to do fun things. In my head, it's a person who's wearing a suit and very strict and has rules about everything, and it's just bam, bam, bam. But you're just the happiest, bubbliest person who's everyone come along.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Do you know what though? I do love a good suit. I think throughout my career, I think there's been such a big change in who I turn up as. And I think being a young woman in I wouldn't say male dominated space, but I would say that there's definitely a boys club when it comes to the, marketing world. So I definitely look back on my, last 12 years of work for other agencies and other businesses, and I can see how I've kind of adapted myself over the years to try and fit in or seem, more important or as important as the guys wearing suits, or to be taken seriously, because there have been some really shitty experiences as a female in the industry that I've had. And that was kind of one of the biggest driving forces for me to start my business, was that I didn't want somebody else, whether that's a male, female, trans, non-binary, however you identify. I don't want anyone else to feel the way that I felt in certain parts of my career. So it's a big, big driver for me for the business. Obviously, our, services, skill sets, what we deliver as a business is important. But I was talking to somebody about this last week, and I was saying, whilst there's the business goals of, being able to do great work with these amazing clients and help these clients, my driver that gets me out of bed every single day is being able to grow a business that can support the livelihoods of these people who, haven't had a great experience to date, but are fucking great at what they do. So it's I regularly refer to my business as the orphanage, because we have lots of people who have joined as clients who have either been treated awfully by big agencies who have overpromised and underdelivered, or have been treated awfully by freelancers who have again either promised the world and then not delivered, or not promised anything and then kind of gone missing for a few weeks and kind of not delivered a seamless experience. And then we have my team that have come from, again, awful agency experiences or awful brand experiences. And I'm just I love that I now have the power to control and shape their experiences to be more positive in this industry. And that's a big driving force for me in doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really know exactly how this works. And that's one of the reasons why I've wanted to get you on here, because I can see that you're having all this impact, but I'm like, I want to understand exactly how it works. So I worked with like business coaches in the past who are kind of like, oh, like focus on this with your content, and like maybe this is a good idea for a course. And yeah, like how do you work with a client then? What kind of clients do you normally work with?
Oh my gosh, like if you'd asked me when we first started the business, my business was set up, so we're a pay-as-you-go marketing agency, and fundamentally all that means is that you pay for what you need when you need it. Similarly to, being able to go through your shopping list in your cart and be like, okay, what's the most important stuff that I need now? What stuff can I save for later and I can do later on? So we help clients, both big and small, tailor their scopes of work to deliver the outcomes that they need. So for example, and we've got a variety of different examples, but when I first started my business, we were predominantly set up to service small to medium-sized businesses and individuals. So to give those people access to marketing and social media advice that they wouldn't have had access to if they were working with a big agency that charges a retainer fee of like $30,000 as a minimum entry fee, right? So there was this big gap in the market between working with a freelancer that you're like, well, I don't really know if I can trust you because you're just on your own and you kind of just doing it as you can. And then there was the big agencies. There was kind of nothing really in between that to fill that gap. So we kind of came in and said, well, what happens if we put, the choosing power or the choice back to our clients? Instead of us saying, hey, this is your fixed retainer and this is how much it's going to cost you to get what you need to get done, instead flip it on its head and get them to tell us what they need or what they want. And then we shape a scope of work based on what they're able to pay for at that point in time. Because as we know, small to medium-sized businesses have really irregular cash flow. So one month you might be flying, the next month you're like, oh, I need to save some money. So having a locked in contract for 12 months just isn't feasible for those businesses. So how we work with clients, we work with everyone from a startup, individual, personal brand, all the way through to like some of the biggest banks in Australia. So it's very different how we work with each of those customers or clients. So if we take, for example, a small business or a sole trader or a personal brand or someone that's working for themselves, we will work with them and define what it is that they need. And I'll give you a perfect example that just happened this week. One of my clients, he came to me, he'd had a couple of quotes of building web pages and that user journey and that email marketing experience out. And let me tell you, there is nothing that makes my eyes twitch more when he comes to me and he was like, I'm thinking about taking out a loan to get this website off the ground. And I'm like, stop. Like I have this saying that's like, you can't yuck somebody's yum, right? Like I will never put somebody else down in terms of the services that they provide. But there are people that work for the money. And then there are people that work to help people. And then I believe that there are people that are in it for both, right? Because you don't run a business just to turn up every day and just hope that you make money, right?
No,
you are in business to make money. Yeah. You are in business to make money and pay your bills and, whatever other things that you have that drive you from a money point of view. But then our desire or our value to help is higher than our value to make money. So if, for example, they come to us and they're like, this is what I want to do, and we don't think that that's the right solution for what they need right now, we'll go back to them and say, actually, you should think about doing it like this. We'll phase it out for them and say, look, phase 1, if you're going to start with anything, start with this. It's going to cost you this much. And give them a little like phase out plan and a shopping list of like, these are your phases. If you're going to tackle anything in any point, start with phase 1. Then when you've got enough cash to do phase 2, do phase 2, because not everybody has a huge amount of cash. And I think that's one of the biggest business myths. And I spoke about it in an article that I wrote the other day, was like one of the biggest business myths is that you need to have a whole lot of money to start a business. And you don't. You just need to be investing in the right things at the stage in your business that you're at. So we help businesses decipher that. So for example, with a small to medium-sized business or an individual, we'll go through that process. We'll figure out what they want, what they need help with, what their goals are, what their objectives are with their business, and then we'll shape that retainer or that scope of work around that. And then they can work through that at their own pace. So once we've hit phase 1, they pay for phase 1. Once we've done phase 2, they pay for phase 2. And that is very much controlled by the client. Similarly, on the other end of the scale with our bigger clients, like big banks, big marketing agencies, insurance companies, we do various marketing activities for them that they can't resource internally. So one of my clients, for example, doesn't have an events team, but they know that they need to be doing events. So we deliver their entire calendar year of events for them as a third party that works within their business, essentially. So they brief us on what we need to do. We kind of go away, pull together a bit of a scope of work and what that looks like, and then we execute that for them, working alongside their marketing team and their comms team and everything like that. In the same way, we also do a number of workshops with big businesses and pilot programs that we design around personal branding and getting people more confident on LinkedIn and Instagram to start sharing their own stories. So every scope of work is so different for what we do. Like there is such a big spectrum, but fundamentally the kind of 3 core pillars of our business are like marketing and marketing services, social media, and then personal branding.
Yes, I love that. And that's so cool. You do so many different things.
So much. Oh my gosh, so many hats.
So I'd say that most people who listen to this podcast are, either like myself, who already I have my own business, or they want to start their own business. Especially I guess for the people who do just want to start, and a lot of we have a lot of girls who study with us and they are just freshly qualified personal trainers, nutritionists. What would you, and then there's so much advice out there, do you need a mail list, do you need LinkedIn, do you need this, do you need that, the Instagram, website? Where should you really start, do you think, if you are someone who's just finished studying and okay, how do I get clients?
Yeah, look, I think there's so many different places that you can start, and it depends on the angle that you want to take, right? But if I was to start again in my space, the emphasis that I would, and building an Instagram following or a TikTok following, but that platform is managed and owned by somebody else. And fundamentally, they can turn it off like that. So being able to build out your own channel, i.e. your email channel that you own and that you manage and that you can talk to at any point is really important, because we all know when Instagram has a crash, everyone with a remote following goes, oh my gosh, they're all my followers. That's how I communicate with everybody, and they freak out. So I would say definitely invest in building your own channel and your own platform that you can own. That's not to say Instagram and TikTok don't serve a purpose, but it's just to say it's a great backup that if you have 100,000 followers on Instagram and half of those people are signed up for your emailing list, when Instagram decides to not be the cool thing and everyone decides to transition off it and no longer use it, at least 50,000 of those people you can still communicate with via email. So the first thing I would say is invest in your own channel. So whether that's your website and your email, I would also argue that not every business needs an in-depth website. I think so many people look at it and they're like, I want something sexy. I want something that's, makes me look like, I'm the best personal trainer, I'm the best health coach or whatever. And it's it actually just needs to serve a purpose. Yes, it can look good and it needs to be functional for the user, but it actually just needs to be able to serve a purpose. So whatever you can't put on your social media or your mailing list or whatever, any facts, any information about products or services that you provide, that goes on your website. Maybe a bit more about you that people won't be able to ascertain from a social media post or anything like that. But, this client that I was talking to earlier about this website build, he'd been quoted this 10-page website. And I was like, what are you going to put on it? Really, you need a website to be able to have clients come, see that you're a legit business, see that there's a bit of social proof or testimonials about the fact that people have already worked with you, understand your story, and purchase your product. Right? So it's like your website should just serve that purpose. Like, I think a lot of people, and I've seen it over the years, pour so much ego into their website because they're like, website's now live. I'm like, yes, but the website has to be functional and it has to serve a purpose. Otherwise, it's just a really expensive web page. You know what I mean? So it's like, even when I started my business with a landing page, one page with my contact details, what the business was about and the services that we delivered, but it was one page because that's all I could afford. And then as I've got more cash flow that's become available to me, I've then reinvested that back into my website and built that out as we've gone. And I think that's something that a lot of people that are looking to get into business don't fully get, is that, you know, in marketing, we have this term called minimum viable product, which we call MVP. So if you're launching a product, what is the minimum viable product that you can get out there that allows you to start converting, i.e. getting sales through the door, bringing customers in? What is that minimum viable product? It's not going to be the most sexy version of your product, but it is going to be a version that allows you to gather testimonials, feedback, you know, user experience, all of that. So start with the minimum viable product. Don't start with like what the end goal is. And it's the same with app development. Like, don't go in with the 46 different features and benefits in the app. Go in with what you need in order for those users to be able to use it at a fundamental stage. And then look to refine it and tweak it as your users are on the platform, because that's the best form of feedback.
Yeah, 100%. And I think anyone, like, I've obviously been coaching now for over 5 years, and God, I've made some of these mistakes that you're saying, like thinking,
oh, we all have
to invest, you know, 20 grand in an app, and then like pull that last minute, like, fuck, I don't actually need this. There's a free version here that's basically exactly the same. It just doesn't have my logo on it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing I think with business is like, leave your ego at the door. I think one thing that I don't feel like I've ever really had attached to my business is my ego. Like I said to you before we started recording, like, I don't care if you call me the cleaner or like, you know, the printing lady or the front office lady. Like, I have no attachment to the fact that I'm an owner of a business. But that has helped me shaped my business into the business that it is today, because I've looked at it through the lens of like, how can I help these people? How can I, you know, put my best product or service or person forward to help this person solve the problem? And I think that sometimes you do just need to have a little bit of an ego check and go, okay, are you doing this to like prove to everybody that you can launch a website? Because let me tell you, investing like 10 grand in a website and launching it and being like, guys, this is my sexy new website, is great. And it's an unbelievable feeling. But if that website doesn't convert sales for you, what's the point?
Yeah. Oh God, 100%. Like, you having that relationship and building that community is so much more important than all the fancy stuff. Like, I recently went through like a big change in my business, and I was like, I don't need to pay for all these extra pro versions of everything. Like, I can just have the free stuff and then just focus, like put more focus and more money on my own education, my own growth, and therefore serve my clients better. Like, all this extra free, like cool stuff, no one really cares. Like you said, it's just your ego that's like, I want the fanciest thing because that person has the fanciest thing.
Totally. And I think also what I would say as further to like advice around starting a business is, I think social media has glorified owning businesses.
Oh yeah.
And I fucking hate it, because people go, oh my God, it's so cool that you like got, you know, started a business, or you know, you've got a team, or, you know, you're doing all of this cool stuff. I'm like, that's great. Like, I love it. I get such a kick out of it. I get out of bed every morning, like, so excited to start my day. But not everybody does. And it's not designed for everybody. Otherwise, everybody would own a business. And I've had a couple of friends that have gone out and tried to start something And then they've just got to the point where they're like, I don't like wearing all the different hats, or I don't like doing, the finances and then the back end and then, all the client servicing stuff. And then I've got to build my product in the back. And it's just like, it's not designed for everybody. And I think that it's okay not to be a business owner as well. Like I like to also preface that I call it like an entrepreneur, like being an entrepreneur within a business. It's like, it's okay. You could also be successful working for somebody. Because the moment you start a business, I started a business because I loved marketing, social media, and personal branding, and I wanted to be able to help people with it, right? But the more team that I bring on, the more clients that I bring on, the less work that I'm actually doing myself that I love, the more I'm doing of like people management, finance management, invoicing, back of house, like all of that, like really non-sexy stuff, which I personally love the people management side of stuff, but not everybody does. So there's also that like thought around when you start a business, as you scale your business, you actually start doing less and less of the stuff that you started the business originally wanting to do.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think so many people graduate in, especially, I don't know, obviously I don't know any other industry, but I know that in this industry, a lot of people graduate and they're like, okay, I'm going to start my business. This is going to be the name. This is going to be the logo. And it's all fun and exciting. It's really cool. And it's amazing if you start your own business, but it's also no shame in starting to work under another coach. Like I had a team of coaches for a while and I honestly hated being a boss. Like now that I've changed my business, there's no way I know that I'm not going to hire anyone. I don't care if it will make me more money because I do not like doing all that back end stuff and people managing and all the back house stuff. I actually hate it. I want a coach. I
think that's great that you can recognize that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think that's so important.
Yeah, and I know so many people who I know firsthand who have been coaches and now they are managing coaches, and they're always saying like, well, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them are saying like, I really miss just coaching. So if you have the opportunity to work for another coach, absolutely fucking go for it. See if you even want to be in this freaking industry, and also you don't have to invest any money into it, basically.
Totally. And I would also say, like, I worked at I worked in 6 agencies before I started my own. And each one of those agencies taught me what I wanted and what I didn't want, whether that's in a team, in a manager, in a client. Like, there were so many things that I learned from each of those experiences. And I think that I see nowadays, again, like, I think social media glorifies it a lot, but I think that nowadays I see people coming straight out of uni being like, right, I want to start a business because I don't want to work for anybody else. And that's fine to have those aspirations, but you actually don't have the experience to know what's great in business and what's not because you've never worked for somebody else. And I was talking to one of my friends who also owns a business last night, and we were saying, like, some of the comments that I had whilst I was away in Indonesia was like, oh, wow, like 5-6 weeks away from work, like that's the life I want to build for myself, blah, blah, blah. And like, I've done 12-13 years of working for other people before I started my business. I worked 8 a.m. till 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, some nights in agency life for months on end, learning to manage difficult clients, learning to manage difficult people, learning what I liked and what I didn't like. But I wouldn't have had that experience, and my business wouldn't be what it is today without the experiences that I've had for other businesses. So I think that it's really important to be able to even just work with another coach or another gym or, anyone within that space and actually learn from them both ways, what you like and what you don't like. And you'll take something from that, every person or business that you work for, because you're like, actually, I don't want to be a leader like that, or I don't want to be a boss like that, or I would never say that to somebody that worked for me, or, and you learn those things. And you don't, I think the thing that I've seen happen when people go straight from, school or uni to managing a business is they actually don't have those like people skills or the emotional awareness to manage a client, because they're so caught up in this like world that they think is real, of like, well, clients should just be like this, or, you know, people should just speak to me like this because I'm helping them. And it's like, actually, if you remove yourself from this situation, like, you just haven't got enough experience in managing these different types of people to be able to manage it effectively, and it'll end up backfiring.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, of course, we have to study and get our qualifications and, you know, do everything right by the book. But I honestly will say that the most I learned about how to be a good coach is from being coached myself, and then also working with clients. But like
100%.
being coached yourself, especially if it is someone, if you are in the fitness industry or mindset or whatever, marketing, be coached by someone who does what you already want to do, because you're going to learn so freaking much about coaching techniques, about yourself, about different ways to do stuff. Like, it is honestly, it's so valuable, and it makes me so mad that people do not want to invest this money in it because they see it as just, I don't know, like I don't need that. I'm already qualified. It's like, no,
yeah, but that's like, that's where ego comes in again, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, ego is the biggest destroyer of businesses. Like, people don't fail at business because they're bad at business. They fail at business because they let their ego get in the way, I think. I think that for me, like, even, you know, the way I manage my team now, it's funny, I bump into people that like I used to work with or whatever, and they're like, wow, like, you're doing so well and blah, blah, blah. And I'm still getting used to getting good at taking compliments. So I'm always like, thank you. But they are always like, you know, how did you figure it out, or how did you do it? And I'm like, number one, no one knows what the fuck they're doing. Like, everyone figures it out as they go. Let's just get that really clear, because I've met some of the biggest business owners, you know, really senior people in like massive organizations across the world, that I walk into a meeting and I'm like, you run this business? Like, I'm good. Like, if you run this business, I'm okay. Like, I've got this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, like, number one, no one has it all figured out. But number two, like, I've literally, like, there is no playbook, but I've literally just taken every awful experience that I've had over the last 12 years and done the complete opposite with my team. And I think that especially when you're managing people, like, if you don't manage people as people, you will lose them. And I think far too often businesses look at people as the workers or the people that do the work. And I'm like, if I'm not the hardest working person in the room, like, there's an issue, because I get paid to run my business. They don't get paid to run my business. They get paid to turn up and do their job. So it's like, for me, being able to learn all of those lessons from people that I've liked and not liked at the same time, has been able to allow me to shape my business to what it is today. So I think I couldn't be more grateful for the good and bad experiences that I've had to date, because it's then been able to benefit me in the long term to go, okay, well, what kind of leader do I want to be? You know, if I was in their shoes, how would I feel? Or if I was, you know, brought on, like, what do I want in a leader? And then just innately understanding the people that work for you. Like, it's not a hard thing. And I think that's the biggest thing that I struggled with when I was working for other people, is that so many of the business problems I would look at and be like, this is such a simple fix. Like, this is really easily solved. But again, it was too caught up in like ego and like, well, this is the way that we've always done things. And I just wanted nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and you're so right in everything that you're saying. I definitely agree that people's ego does come and ruin it for everyone. Holds you back a little bit, because it's scary to be wrong. It's scary to make mistakes, but it's kind of just a part of it when you are a business owner. It's just about, you know, throwing spaghetti on the wall and hopefully hope that it sticks.
Totally. I think one of the things, again, I literally had a very similar conversation last night, which is why I keep saying I spoke about this last night. But I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned running my business was fail fast. Because so many people don't act on a decision because they procrastinate about something. They don't start a business because they're like, well, I don't have the right business name, or I don't have money to start a website, or, you know, they come up with all of these different things, and then it prolongs, you know, the process and the time. So for me, it's like, go in with what you think is right, have enough facts or evidence to support the decision that you're making. I think Barack Obama talks about it in his book, where he gets to like a 51% decision. If he has 51% facts, he'll make the decision, because that will be the most decisive he'll be in that point, right? Anything after that is just guaranteeing, you know, what he already knows. But if you can get to 51% like certainty, and then, you know, make that decision, I try to use that and embrace that a lot in my business, is make decisions quickly. And it's like, fail fast, so that if you are going and you're like, oh fuck, this is not working the way that I thought it was going to work, be able to quickly adjust it, to quickly pivot and change course, to acknowledge the fact that it's not working and get out of there. And that's similar with like hiring people, to be completely honest. Like, it might sound really brutal, but I say hire fast, fire faster, which might seem really inhumane, but it's so true, because one great person in your business can be the difference between, you know, the culture being great, the clients feeling looked after, all of that, versus one bad person in the business. It just rots. And then it has this knock-on effect to the people that they work with. It has a knock-on effect to the clients, the standard of work that you deliver, and all of that. So I think I'm a very emotional person. I'm very empathetic. I feel love, you know, I cherish things hard, you know, like I fall hard, I go into things head first. And for me, the most kind of tricky thing that I've navigated as a female, I suppose, is that you're kind of met with this, you know, don't be emotional. Like, leaders aren't supposed to be emotional. And for me, I couldn't disagree with that more, because for me, bringing my emotion and my full self to work is what makes me the leader that I am today. What makes my team feel safe, heard, understood, supported, empowered. But there should be no emotion in decision making. So I think you can be an empathetic leader, but I think you've got to take the emotion out of decision making. So emotion can be there. You know, I can sit there and cry with a girl that works for me saying, you know, she's broken up with her boyfriend, or, you know, I can feel all those feelings with her, and that doesn't make me any less of a leader. But when it comes to, you know, getting rid of somebody that is a toxic person within the business, whether that's someone that works for me or a client, I will happily pull the trigger and be like, this is not serving us. And I will do it quickly, because the longer I let it rot there, the further it's going to erode the business. And I just don't have time for that.
No. And that's so true. Like, I mean, when you're saying that, I'm just like picturing like one rotten strawberry in like a punnet, and how it just spreads so quickly, because it does. Totally. It is so true.
And also on that, like, if you think about a rotten piece of like raspberry or blueberry or strawberry in a punnet, right? You open that punnet, you see one rotten piece of fruit.
Yeah.
You don't want to touch any of the other pieces of fruit, because you're like, oh, well, what if that's rotten?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same as in business. Like, if a client comes on board and they see one person that's potentially not performing, or is toxic, or is lazy, or whatever, they then go, oh, is this business the right fit for me? And it has a knock-on effect to the rest of the business. So whilst there's that rotting internally, there's also that perception of rotting as well. When they open the container and there's one little sad, rotting piece of fruit, they go, oh, maybe the other ones are also rotting, so I think I'll just throw the whole container in the bin.
Yeah, that is so freaking true. And I think it also goes back to what you're saying before about the ego, and about being able to just be like, no, that I was wrong. That wasn't the right person for the team. My intuition was wrong here. I'm going to get rid of them. I think a lot of people want to hold on to things, like we're too proud to let them go. And I think anyone in business has probably made this mistake of like, no, I'm just going to try one more time, like just a little bit harder. And well, deep down, we actually do know that, no, this program is not going to work, or this client is not right for me, or this, I don't know, page isn't what I should be doing. And especially like when you are first starting out, it can be hard to, create all these new programs and like, oh my God, like I'm so happy about this 8-week challenge or 12-week challenge or whatever. And you post it and then no one signs up. And it sucks. Like it definitely does. But just know that this is a part of this is a part of being a business owner. You're going to have projects that are not going to work, and then other projects are going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, one of the best books I've ever read is called Emotional Intelligence. And it really changed my whole perspective on, like, well, I'll send you the link so you can put it in the show notes or whatever. But it changed my whole perspective on emotion, because I'm a very emotional person. I feel my feelings and I love that about myself. But I would always get really offended when I worked for other businesses when people were like, oh, I don't like the way you've done that, or I don't like, that idea that you've put forward. And I'd sit there being like, I've spent so much time on this spreadsheet or this presentation or whatever. And I'm like, you're telling me you don't like it? Well, I don't like you. Like, and I get really personal about it, because I'm like, you spend so much of your time at work, and even more so when you're a business owner, like your brain doesn't stop. And for me, there was this example that they gave in the book, which is 2 people, one person that you really like, one person that perhaps you've had an argument with in the past, or perhaps you don't see eye to eye, or, maybe, you're not aligned in the values that you have or whatever, or you don't agree with the way in which they do things. They both call into work sick. And how you react to those 2 different situations is so different. The one that's called into work sick that you actually like, you're like, oh my gosh, that poor thing, she probably needs the rest. She's probably been really overworked, tired. She's had a lot of stuff going on lately, blah, blah, blah. She needs the rest. The other person, you're like, oh my gosh, they always leave me with this shit. Like, they always leave shit last minute, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're, never do any work. They're so lazy, blah, blah, blah. Fundamentally, if you remove the people from this situation, the problem is exactly the same. Neither of those 2 people are at work.
Yeah.
So I think largely as well, like, we can be really impacted and affected by the way in which we feel about people that we deal with. And then the situation itself, we're not actually dealing with, because we're dealing with that plus the layer of how we feel about that person.
Yeah.
So I think that being able to, as I said, make a non-emotional decision, or remove the person from the situation and deal with the situation, as it is, and go, okay, cool. People not buying my 8-week course doesn't mean that I'm a bad trainer. Doesn't mean that I'm not a good health coach. It just means that there's something in here that's not convincing people to buy. Now, from a marketer's point of view, I'd sit there and be like, okay, let's look at your user journey. Is the price point too high? Is there too many clicks to get to somebody to convert? Is there, too many loopholes, or is there a big form that they have to fill in, which you're losing people as they go through that process? As a marketer, I look at that, but I think that you have to look at it from a completely emotionless point of view, that it has nothing to do with you. Like, if a client emails me and they're like, hey, Hayley, thanks so much for pitching on this. We loved your ideas, but we've decided to go with another agency. I'm like, no problems. Like, enjoy your time with them. You know where we are. If ever you need anything in the future, give me a call. Like, I'm only a call away. And the amount of people that have gone with another agency, and then 3, 6, 9 months later, they've like knocked on our door and been like, oh, I didn't really work out with that last agency. Yeah. And it's like, it's not a personal thing. I'm like, I'm such a big believer in what is meant for you won't walk past you. And so it's just not right for them at that time. So it's like, what can you learn from that course that you launched, or that program that you launched that perhaps didn't do so well? Look at it from like a data point of view and go, what was different to that course versus the course that sold out in a week?
Yeah.
And how can you make those different changes, or implement those changes for the next course that you do? And it's really just test and learn.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like I can relate so much to what you're saying, because when I first started and like someone would inquire and then they were like, I don't know. And then they would follow up and follow up and follow up and follow up. And it's like, you're just being that fucking annoying like car salesman. It's like, but what about this car? But what about this car? What about this car? And eventually the person's like, oh, go get away from me. Like, I don't ever want to talk to you ever again. But if you just do what you like, exactly what you said, that's okay. No problem. I leave the decision in your hands. I'm here if you need me. Then most of the time, the clients do end up coming back. Maybe not the next day, maybe not the next week, but 6 months down the track, maybe.
Totally. And that's why it's so important from a social point of view, is to then have that consistent content going out there, because those people will be following you on Instagram. They will be following you on, you know, LinkedIn or TikTok or Twitter, whatever platform you use, Threads. But they will follow you and they will keep watching. And the amount of emails or phone calls that I've had being like, hey, Hayley, I've been following you for 8 months. I really love what you do with the business. You know, and then that turns into a job or a call. That call wouldn't happen if I put no content out there.
Yeah.
So I think there's an importance there that whilst there's a really, you know, big focus on those big programs or workshops or things like that you run that are like, this is really big, sexy, shiny. Like, consistency is not sexy. Is really not sexy, right? Like with health and fitness, like I know that. Like if someone goes, oh, Hayley, how did you lose all the weight that you lost a few years ago? I go, oh, it's just consistent. Like I did what I enjoyed doing and I did it over a long period of time. And people are like, yeah, but like, was there a particular exercise or was there a particular like food that you ate or a diet that you ate? And I'm just like, no, like I just did something for a really long period of time. And I think that in business, consistency is not sexy at all. No. And when people are going, oh, so you've done this for 3 years. I'm like, yeah, but now people are just starting to notice me. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so successful. I'm like, yeah, but I've been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like you didn't see me when I first started and I put up my post being like, hey guys, just starting my business. You didn't see that.
Yeah.
But now you see me and you look at me and go, oh, well, you know, this overnight success. And I just think I love the saying that's like an overnight success takes 10 years.
Yeah, I love that.
Because it's like every single person that people dub as like an overnight success is someone that, you know, has been grinding and has been doing the stuff that's not sexy in the background, has been consistent in turning up, talking about the same shit every single day. And that's how they've got to where they've got to. So I think consistency, like whilst those sexy programs and everything like that is amazing, and like the work that goes into them, they look great, blah, blah, blah. That's just one thing. And it's like, how do you make sure that your audience are constantly getting updates and information about what you're doing? And that's where the consistent element of social media plays a role.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to show up when it's quiet as well. I think that's one of the hardest things with business. It's, you know, it's all well and good creating content when people are buying every single day. But when you haven't had like a client contact you or an inquiry for, I don't know, like a month or a couple of weeks or a few months maybe, then it's going to fucking suck sometimes to put up content. But you need to be consistent and you need to keep going and keep showing up and keep reminding people, because then people will eventually buy.
Yeah, totally. And I think that for me, like even now people are like, you know, how do you get the businesses that you get? Do you pay for ads? All of that. And I'm like, no, I just post every single day on social media and I talk about the shit that I'm passionate about. And my team do the same thing. I encourage them to do the same thing. Like it is so important for me that my team have their own profiles and that they talk about whatever the fuck they want to talk about. Like on LinkedIn, my team can go from posting about a workout that they've done that day to like the work that we deliver. Like it could be anything, but I'm like so good that is what they feel comfortable talking about, because I'm like, if I was to sit here as a business owner and go, you can only talk about these things and I'm going to give you templates to write about and blah, 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 like you hamstring their creativity, you hamstring who they are as a person. And fundamentally, I'd be nothing without my team, like nothing. I wouldn't be able to do half the meetings that I do. I wouldn't be able to sit on this podcast today. Like there are so many things that I'm not able to do without my team. So I think, you know, a lot of the success of the business is them. Like, sure, I'm the one holding everything together, but I think that fundamentally, like the business wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Hayley, it's been so good to talk to you. We didn't barely spoke about anything that I thought we were going to talk about. But I knew this was going to happen, and I think we had such a great conversation. Yeah, literally. And I think so many people are going to get so much out of it. I know, even just for myself, and there were so many good reminders for me. It's like, yes, this is what you need to do. This is like just reminders. So I think everyone's going to be able to get something from that. But before we go, do you want to give yourself a little plug? Where can people find you? Are you taking on clients?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm pretty much on every platform. Let's be honest.
We will tag everything.
We have to be. But my main platforms, my personal platform is Hayley Westoby, Westoby, with a B, not a V. On Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's the same. I post pretty much daily on LinkedIn a lot about business and what we do and social media marketing, personal branding tips, insights, etc. And then the business page is Gambit Collective. That's on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, and that's the same as my business, my pages as well. So you can find me everywhere that has my name on it.
Beautiful. Yes, we will link all of those in the show notes if you're interested in contacting Hayley, even working as a client, asking her questions. Make sure you do check her out, and just watching your stories and getting a little boost of your beautiful energy.
Yay! We love positivity. We lost nothing.
Well, hopefully you're back in Bali soon. But guys, you know the drill by now. Please make sure you do take a screenshot of the podcast. Tell us what you enjoyed, what you got out of it. Make sure you tag myself, tag Hayley, tag Women's Fitness Academy, and make sure that you listen to the next episode. Thanks again, Hayley, for coming on, and thanks everyone for listening.
Awesome.